few years ago, we decided to mount a wooden sign above the cross in our church sanctuary where we gather each week for Sunday worship. The sign has three simple yet all-important words carved into it. God is love. I'm often reminded of the first time I discussed those three words with my daughter, Michaela. I, along with my wife, have always tried to encourage my two children, Michaela and Levi, to have inquisitive minds, to nurture a healthy sense of curiosity and wonder about the world and the God who lovingly creates and interacts with the world. Oftentimes, as I look back, it was before bedtime that the curiosity of my children was stirred. One such evening years ago was while reading a bedtime story with Michaela. She would have been no older than the age of 4 at the time, and she had asked me a profound theological question that night. To this day, I'm not sure if the question was asked primarily motivated by a sense of genuine curiosity or simply an opportunity to delay the inevitable lights out for a few more minutes that night. It was probably a mix of both. The question she asked that night was this: Dad, is there one God or three gods? Now, here was my 4-year-old daughter inquiring about the mystery of the Trinity. And while math has never been her strongest subject, even at the age of 4, she already knew that 1 plus 1 plus 1 doesn't equal 1. Of course, I paused for a moment, trying to figure out how best to explain the essence of the triune God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, in language and images that my 4-year-old could understand. After a moment, I responded to her question, using it as an opportunity to teach her the Bible verse in which those three simple yet all-important words are encapsulated. God is love. I went on to try and explain, in age-appropriate language of course, that for love to exist and to flourish, it must do so within authentic give-and-take relationships, where love is both dispensed and received within mutually submissive relationships. Essentially, I told her that if she didn't exist, then the love we share couldn't exist. It requires relationship. This was and continues to be my best explanation for the mystery of the God of love who exists eternally as Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. The early church father Gregory of Nazianzus used the Greek word pericheresis to describe the Trinity in a similar way. Pericheresis means to dance around, and imagines God in a sort of divine dance of love where Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, all of the same nature and essence, mutually give and receive love. Imagining this divine dance further, we can understand God's ongoing and never-ceasing work of creation as an extension of the essence of God's love. To be created in the image and likeness of God, as all of creation is to be created by love and for love. We find our greatest joy and purpose as we continue to be awake, aware, and focused on God's ongoing presence and love within and around us, permeating all of creation. It should come as no surprise that Jesus, when asked about the greatest of the commandments, distilled the entirety of the law down to these words: love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And in one of the Apostle Paul's high water moments, he emphasizes the priority of love by reminding us that our mere words and deeds are utterly bankrupt if they are devoid of love. In a culture in which love can often be cheapened and distorted in the media, or romanticized and overly simplified to fit on a Hallmark card, we look to Jesus, the visible image of the invisible God, as our supreme example of the love of God embodied and expressed. And so not only do we have mounted the sign, God is love, visible on the way into our weekly worship gatherings, but on the way out by the exit sign, we have mounted a second sign with three other important words: love like Jesus. The hope is that we would be continually reminded that God is love, self-giving, radically forgiving, co-suffering love, and that we can participate in the divine dance of love in how we receive and dispense love in our daily lives and relationships. 1 John 3:16 sums it up very nicely. We know what real love is because Jesus gave up his life for us. So we also ought to give up our lives for our brothers and sisters. Since that bedtime conversation with my then 4-year-old daughter, I've continued to become convinced that of all theology and practice, it is love which is of ultimate importance. Maybe growing in our capacity to love God and neighbor is both preschool and PhD Christianity, as we continue on the journey of life and faith together. Imagine